Yeah, the hope is alive for TSM and for NA. They make it out of the groups here. We said before that they couldn't let it go super late games to avoid those super late team fights versus CJ Entus, and it seems like they managed to rack up enough of a lead to even deal with a Mundo that maybe just wasn't was as big yet, and they finished it out quick enough, Monty.
Yeah, I think they did a very good job of finding the picks they needed in the mid-game and snowballing off of that. It looked like a much more refined version of that last game that we saw against WE, and yeah, very solid win from TSM to be sure. They didn't let CJ get into that late game power spike. I'm not really convinced by Coco Xerath. It's really not one of his main champions. I still think I would have preferred to see that Ezreal there, maybe something else going on in the draft, but yeah, very good game.
It was really decisive from Team Solo Mid. I think this was one of the... It was a 29-minute victory, and it felt like the game was so even for a long time, despite the fact that TSM was making some positive moves. But as soon as they found picks, and as soon as they actually focused down Mundo, they just instantly said, get rid of the front line. Crumbs, you were saying how, everything hinges around this Mundo, everything is important for Mundo. I think TSM realized that, got rid of him from those team fights, and that allowed TSM to go from a 20-minute even game to a 29-minute victory.
Yes, and I think the biggest thing that surprised me from TSM coming out of this game is the fact that they had no instances of overcommitting for anything. Dyrus with the first pick Maokai, we questioned it, and he performed his role perfectly. We know he's a great on tank. Get him on the good tank, a good engage comboed with the Annie, and really go for these nice flanks, especially the one we saw in the mid lane. And other than that, instead of really using Bjergsen's laning strength and his ability to just be a great carry all around to kind of punish Coco, they used that to really snowball off objectives. They focused the blue buffs, focused the towers and the dragons, and then just really, well, the dragons not so much, but they really used that instead of for kills, for a plan to shut down the Xerath, make sure that when the sieging comes from CJ, they just don't have blue buffs, and Xerath just non-factor because of that strategy. And eventually, they really did an excellent job of knowing when CJ overstepped and just killing them right there and not saying, oh, we need to tower dive them now. It's like, no, take the tower and just rinse and repeat. And it felt like CJ really underestimated the damage that could come out of CJ. That Sivir is 2-0. She's ahead of the Corki. Victor is an incredibly powerful pick, and if I was CJ, like you mentioned with the Xerath, I would have rather seen them lock in a Victor in the second round of picks. TSM's not going to take a Mundo away. They're not going to take your Leon away. Just get the Victor. You're going to go with an immobile mid lane anyways. Just get the better one. Yeah, I agree with you there. And just watching the execution of that was really good too, because we saw them so consistently when they would go into those team fights, they'd set down the Victor W or engage with an Annie-Sun, and the chaining of CC just kept people locked up. We saw numerous occasions where Shy couldn't even pop his ult, and in fact was popping it probably too late in some of the instances when he got chased down right there. But there wasn't really an opportunity for any kind of response. That takes very good chaining of CC so that you can't even get any kind of counterplay whatsoever. Yeah, and you go all the way back to picks and bans. We sat for such a long time talking about the possibilities, the options. If there were a different supporter disengage, maybe TSM couldn't have run over them as it played out. If that Xerath was something different. For a team that has traditionally not had the greatest of showings internationally, Team Solo Mid have really, really stepped up their game in contrast to what we were expecting. CJ, we knew that they were a little bit fallible. TSM, we didn't necessarily think they could perform to this level. So it's quite interesting to see the dynamic between the two of them. But I still think for CJ, different picks and bans could have maybe changed the outcome of the game, and it's going to be up to them to determine how they change going into the decided match tomorrow. I think what I really liked about this is that so long we have addressed Wild Turtle and Darius perhaps not being able to really fulfill the roles that at times are required to do so. And we knew Darius was a great tank, but so he wasn't really put in the carry position. But Turtle really stood out in not being one to be caught out. He was never in the front lines, taking unnecessary poke. I mean, only one instance where he took a Xerath down and didn't spell shield it, but it didn't matter because the engage had already come out of TSM. Immediately recognizes, flashes out, doesn't get caught, and this is how he needs to play. Play like this, and the success that they're going to have internationally will be a lot better. Yeah, and right here finding a win as well. And for now, we're actually going to hear from one of those guys. Dyrus is on stage with Chobra.